welcome to your second week of home groups. We're going to continue looking at the book of Joshua and how Joshua leads the Israelites into the promised land, the land that God has promised for their people after escaping out of slavery within Egypt. And today we're going to be talking about what it means to live obediently. You see, obedience is a word that we don't like. We studied in week 1 living intentionally, and intentionality is very popular. We talked in week 2 about living openly, and openness is very popular, but obedience is very unpopular in our culture and especially in our era and our generation. And so we're going to talk about why are we called to live obediently. You see, in this story, it seems like a very rather silly narrative, we find that the Israelites are walking around the city of Jericho because they believe if they're obedient to God's call that they will overtake the city. And we find that they do in the end, but it takes this rather silly obedience for them to continue walking and walking and walking around. And when we think about our own life, maybe we're not called to something as specific as walking around in a city for 6 days. Maybe we're not called to something as specific as going to this county or this country and serving there. But each of us are called to live obediently to the call upon our lives. And sometimes that can be a confusing thing. But we're reminded, and this is why we call I3, that Jesus' call for everyone's life was to love God and to love others. And we're reminded that living obediently means whatever situation or scenario or place that we end up, our call is to live obediently by loving God and loving others. And I think that a lot of this can be simple rule following, but most of it is reminding ourselves that God's plan is greater than our own plan. Let me share a quick story. So I have a dog named Bruce, and Bruce has recently learned how to jump off the snowbank on the side of my house over our backyard fence. And I caught him the other day jumping this fence and running down the sidewalk, exploring whatever is the great unknown in Roosevelt Park. And there are rules within our house for Bruce, things that he's allowed to do and not allowed to do, and running away is certainly out of his obedience range. And Bruce may think that by jumping over the fence he's experiencing greater freedom, but in reality he's experiencing greater danger. There's a really busy street by where I live that he could possibly get hit by a car. There are people in our neighborhood that may think, oh, this is a cute dog, free dog for my child. And Bruce thinks he's entering into greater freedom, but in reality he's entering into a potential captivity to something else. In the same way, the Israelites may think that walking around Jericho is this goofy thing that God is making them do that doesn't make any sense. But in fact, I have a plan for Bruce's life, and I hope that he will follow me throughout life, and that I have good plans to feed him twice a day. I have plans to walk him. I have plans to take him to the beach. In the same way, God has plans for each of our lives that involve loving God and loving others. When we live out of obedience, we enter into those plans that God has planned for us. See, God desires nothing more than for your life to be one of love. And our obedience to the things that God has called us for is not simply a blindly following the rules, but is in fact us entering into a life of love. You see, when we accept the obedience, no matter how crazy it is, God fulfills the promise of making us more and more loving towards God and towards our neighbor. So as you think about this, ask, what does it mean to be obedient as a high school student today? What are the things that we're called to? The conversations, the actions, the things we're called to do, the things we're not called to do. What does it look like to have that radical obedience that the Israelites have as they walk around the city of Jericho? As always, I am with you, I am for you, and I am praying for your home groups this week.